Welcome to Mogobe Nuggets of Wisdom podcast. My name is Mompoloki Lerumo Mogobe. Our objective is to enthuse, inspire, energize, and empower entrepreneurs and entrepreneurs of all stripes here in BW and beyond. We do so by inviting these entrepreneurs and entrepreneurs into our makeshift studio. Sometimes we call them to the restaurant, sometimes we go to our studio, and we ask them to share their experiential knowledge, their experiences and their expertise, and we ask them as many questions as we can, aimed at empowering you also as a viewer. Hello and welcome, salutations. Welcome to another episode of Mogobe Nuggets of Wisdom podcast. I'm so excited once again to bring you some life-changing business information, something that will enthuse, energize, and inspire you like we always do. And I'm going to talk about craftsmanship. This particular episode is something that we'll really look forward to. And my guest is none other than the bearded craftsman himself, Mr. Thulani Zimunhu. Am I pronouncing it correctly?
That is perfect. Thank you so much for inviting me to your platform. I'm excited to have this interview and share what I can with you and hopefully help somebody out there.
Tell me, Mr. Zimunhu.
Yes.
What is your educational background, and just take us through your journey very quickly and take us to how you ended up being a bearded craftsman.
Gosh, where do I start? Basically, I started off with the design background. I studied architecture, but I did not choose to pursue that endeavor because I had other interests that I was working on that were immediately pressing. And I was based in England for quite a few years, I think about 10, 11 years, where I was working with a company called Floyd Construction. The owner was one of my best friends, and he wanted my input in helping him build his brand. And I've never really had a formal education on carpentry and so forth. It was like a passion. My background is that my grandfather is a carpenter. That's how we put my mother into school and that kind of thing. And my grandmother was a baker. So that will knit into the story as it evolves, how I ended up,
and we shouldn't lose sight of the fact that the savior of humanity was a carpenter.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed.
And just on the academic side, what sort of training? Talk about the architectural training and so on.
Yes. Architecture, I'm sure everybody knows, but I focused mainly on interior design and basically the drafting of plans and that kind of thing. My hands-on experience with tools and that kind of thing started way younger. I used to get into trouble for playing with my granddad's tools and table saws. I actually used to get beaten for switching on the electric table saws and all that kind of thing. So yeah, I've always had that as a passion, and that's what eventually added.
You where did you train for architecture, and why is it that you never practiced?
I trained at King's College in London, and I didn't practice because when I came here to Botswana, I didn't have the opportunities. Let me say I wasn't looking for the opportunities to do architecture. I came for personal family reasons.
When was
this?
And
this was in, 2009, 2010, thereabouts. Yes.
And bearded craftsman, I couldn't help noticing that you have a beard. Has that anything to do with it?
Yes, it's because I was a craftsman and I had a beard. It started off as the bearded palette guy, and then I rebranded last year to the bearded craftsman when I wanted to take it a bit more seriously, because it started as a hobby. The way it came about, I was building. I wanted to turn my garage into a man cave, and I got a quotation from somebody to turn it into a man cave with a bar and all these other accessories that I wanted. And he gave me an exorbitant price that I thought was really ridiculous. Let me just buy a couple of pallets and make it myself. And when I did that, the friends that I was inviting over to come and have drinks with me at the man cave thought that it was a beautiful setup. So they wanted me to build that kind of thing for them in their homes. And eventually I started taking orders and making things like furniture out of pallets and beds and that kind of thing. And it just kind of grew from there.
Okay. And you said the original name was pallets. So what
the
kind
bearded
of
pallet guy.
Yeah.
Yes.
What kind of stuff did you actually manufacture? What kind of pallets or furniture?
I made benches. I made beds. I made wall ornaments. You name it, I made it out of pallets. Reception tables for bed and breakfast, that sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I'm sure it's difficult to price yourself in a market like that. How did you do it?
The problem is once you're working with pallets, everybody starts comparing you with the gentleman at Old Naledi, saying those guys charge a certain amount. Why don't you charge the same? And the answer with that is always, I highly respect those gentlemen. They work very hard. They work very hard for their money.
In the sun,
and I didn't want to work that hard because I was taking it as a hobby. So I was running another business at that time. So I started pricing it slightly more than what they were charging because it was me going out of my way to do something for somebody. So you have to pay for that skill, basically.
So what did you say were the toughest challenges when you started?
The toughest challenges when I started was the acquiring of tools. That's the biggest one that I think most craftsmen are facing. Acquiring of tools, building a client base, because you have to learn how to make a very good product, and it has to last. And pallets, unfortunately, they have like a shelf life. They break apart, after a certain amount of time. So I started investigating and delving into using other types of wood. Unfortunately, hardwoods are very difficult to come by in Botswana. You have to either import them, and this is why most people choose pallets. So,
do you do the crafting yourself, and how involved are you in the process?
As of today, I had been the only one doing the work by myself, and I've just set out an advert yesterday to hire carpentry assistants and that kind of thing, because my business has grown to a point where I can't turn down jobs anymore because I'm fully booked, that kind of thing. So I have to be training people and so forth. So I'm very involved physically in doing all the administrative work, all the advertising, and all the crafting, and that kind of thing.
And how did you learn to actually be a craftsman? I'm just trying to figure out whether you had to teach yourself painstakingly, going through it step by step.
Like I said, I grew up in a background of carpentry. My grandfather, till this day, he's 94 years old and he's still a carpenter. He's still taking orders and crafting, items, furniture mostly.
Right here in Botswana?
No, he's in Zimbabwe.
He's back home in Zimbabwe.
Yes, he's back home in Zimbabwe. So I used to watch him and, I used to ask what these kind of joints are. He was making dovetail joints and mortise and tenon joints and stuff. And I used to ask him as a child, younger than a teenager, why are you cutting this piece of wood like this to put it in a joint like this? And he'd explain it's to make it stronger and that kind of thing. So that always caught my eye because I became his favorite grandson at the time because I showed so much interest. And it just kind of grew from there. Like the passion never died. I like looking right now when I look at furniture, I can sort of visualize how it's put together, and with the technical background, I can piece together mentally how it's joined together and that kind of thing. So
let me put that to a test. This table,
yes.
What would you do to recreate it? What would be involved?
To be honest with you, I wouldn't use the material that's on this table because it looks like some kind of chipboard. And the problem with chipboard is that it chips. You know, it breaks and that kind of thing. Longevity is not really a thing with this.
Thankfully, I've used this one now for 3.5 years.
For 3.5 years, you haven't had any problems.
No.
I'm guessing you don't spill any liquids on it and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Yes.
Strictly for the nuggets.
Yes.
I mean, what would it take to replicate this? One that is durable, one that is preferable.
Firstly, I would use like a hardwood. I like to use hardwoods, and I like to join pieces of wood together to make a bigger, object. And the challenge with building things from scratch is sometimes you don't know how long it's going to take you to recreate something because it's not your work. It's somebody else's blueprint. And you can't tell a client, I'll be done with this in 2 days, because you can't do that. You have to face the challenges. That's the problem with not having the formal education to build something, because you have to learn those shortcuts and tricks yourself with practice. Yeah.
But is being an architect a special advantage?
It is, because you can view things with a different mind scope. You can see things expanded. You know what I mean? You can draw plans and you can put together models and that kind of thing. I don't think without that kind of formal education, I'm assuming you won't be able to draw like plans and that kind of stuff.
Assuming, I want to understand your modus operandi.
Yes.
Assuming someone just says, look, I've just built a house.
Okay.
I want it finished from top to bottom by you.
Yes.
What would it entail? Can you take us through the process in terms of getting those sofas in, getting those dining tables in,
yes,
and creating those beds?
Look, I take a shortcut. I literally go to Pinterest and I look at similar spaces and I see what they've done with those spaces and what kind of furniture they've put in those spaces. And then I tell the client that, look, I can recreate this exactly as it is and fill your space with this. Is this what you would like? Type of thing.
Yeah, but then once he chooses, then what?
Once he chooses, that's when I calculate how much material I'm going to use to recreate that thing. I add my markup and I place an order for that material and I start building. Yeah.
Where do you normally source your wood?
I normally source it locally from places like Cash Build and Builders Warehouse and Nata Timbers, that sort of thing. But right now I'm looking into importing solid hardwoods from outside the country. Okay.
There's a tendency to assume that people who wear suits and work in air-conditioned offices make more money than those who use their hands. I think you're here to tell us that that is not true.
It depends on the situation. Like I said, I'm assuming, I don't know for fact, I'm assuming that my brothers over there by the old Naledi, they make a certain finite amount of money that they can charge, because when you go there, there's a long line of my brothers there. You know what I mean? So if you charge a certain price, they can just go, look, I'm going to the guy next door, because he charges less. But when you specialize in a niche and you produce a specific type of thing that only you are good to a particular degree of skill at doing, at producing, you will always have your market.
Okay. Yeah. Now, the bearded craftsman, obviously the beard, I touched on it earlier.
Yes.
I want to appreciate how you, let me just say it. I know that
Yes.
If you were to cut the beard, then what? Does that not affect the brand?
No, it doesn't affect the brand. Most people don't know the face behind the brand because I don't put the face out there. This is probably the first time most of my followers are going to see the face on any kind of social media. Yes.
Why you keep your face away from social media?
It's not a deliberate thing. I'm a very shy individual, so plus
I believe that Andy had to convince you to come.
he did. He had to convince me. We've done a couple of shows together, and he likes the way I answer questions and the way I, present myself. And he says it pulls viewers. And his explanation is the gray beard on a young-looking person, so it's confusing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And obviously the social media component is a big part
Yes.
of what you do. Talk to me about how you started with that and why social media has impacted your business.
Okay. I would like to say 90% of my business comes from social media, particularly Facebook, because the way I sort of advertise myself is I take a camera and I record the process of me from cutting a piece of rough wood, sanding it down, joining it together, finishing it, and then showing the final product made, and then comparing it to the picture that was given to me by a client from Pinterest. And when you put the picture and the finished product side to side, they look identical. I think that's what fascinates people when they look at the video content. So I used to have a company back in the day that started with the same model. It was called Signature Cupcakes, and we basically used to do make custom cakes, in the shape of Batman or in the shape of a Range Rover, that sort of thing. And we noticed that by posting every day what you're doing, people are watching and they start to anticipate what you're going to make tomorrow. So that's the model that I used with Bearded Craftsmen.
What became of Signature Cupcake?
I left the company and left it to my then partner because I'm one person who likes to keep. My passion is developing businesses from nothing. Signature Cupcakes was started with only 200 pula in the wallet. And then it grew to what it grew to. It had reality TV shows and that kind of thing.
Wow.
Yes. So,
explain that to me. The reality TV show, how does that work?
Basically, we saw some, when I say we, it's me and my then partner at the time. We saw some adverts in the Gazette for BTV wanted some TV content and that sort of thing. And we figured, look, we've got cameras. I think we eloquate ourselves nicely. So why don't we just video what we're doing every day and post it on YouTube and see what happens? And that's how the idea for shooting every day started.
What happened to that content? Do you monetize it?
No, unfortunately, I haven't figured out a way of how to monetize it in Botswana yet because of the region and the rules. Some people are telling me you have to open your YouTube in a different country so that you can monetize it. Unfortunately, Botswana doesn't fit the criteria for you to.
Unfortunately, there's some truth in that.
Yes.
And you and I should change that.
Yes, indeed. I'm happy to push that in any way that I can.
Are you using the same tactics or techniques in Bearded Craftsmen? How has that worked?
Please.
Where somebody follows you from scratch, developing a product.
Yes, that's what I
With
do
your camera.
currently. That's what I do currently. I record everything that I do from my first cup of coffee in the morning till the final product. So every day. Your
Facebook is live 24/7.
It's not live. I do these edited videos.
Oh, I see.
Yes, time lapse. Like maybe let's say a product takes a week to manufacture. I'll film the process of going to buy the materials. I'll film the process when I'm cutting it and measuring and drawing the plans. All the way until it's completed and to delivery. Sometimes, if the client accepts for me to video that.
Any particular product you've done that you can blow your trumpet a little bit about, that really produced a favorable response from the public?
I could, but I signed a non-disclosure for most of my most successful products because the clients don't want them to be shown. But Right now, my top seller is a jewelry box. I make jewelry boxes and these watch boxes that people can start a collection in and start keeping their watches. That's my best seller currently.
How does it work and how does it look like?
It's you'd have to go to my Facebook to see the pictures of it. But it's really a beautiful product. It's very simple to make. It takes about a day to complete, and like I said, you'd have to see it to.
Why would people muffle you and stop you from talking about? You said you signed a non-disclosure, talking about a successful product. That's very strange for me.
It might come across as strange, but sometimes some of my clients will be they'll have other clients who don't want to be disclosed. Yeah, so I'm trying to figure out a politically correct way of
putting it.
Yes.
No, I understand. But can you describe like a big production or creation that you've done? Something tangible? Because I get the impression that the jewelry box is fairly small.
It seems small, but I make quite a few of those a day.
Okay.
Yeah. And the pricing for them is really, it's what keeps me on my feet.
Okay.
Yes.
So I'm asking about a bigger product. I thought you would talk about a room divider or talk about, sofas and things like that.
Let's put it this way. Most of the events that people have gone to, all those things that they see made there, I probably had a hand in it.
Events like?
Like I said.
That's where you signed.
Yes.
They've really muffled you. Right? I would, if you had sought my legal advice, I would have said, don't sign that.
Yes.
You don't have to sign that.
Yes. I'm pretty happy playing the just working in the background.
Yeah. You have done some work with Andile having around the boy child.
Yes.
Would you care to tell us what work that is and what's your interest in the boy child?
Okay. My work with Andile, we were shooting a series of
Andile, for those who don't know, is my PA who also happens to be part of our HR team.
Yes. There was a project focusing on the boy child because the boy child is forced by their environment and the society to a certain extent on how they should behave, how they should feel, what their role is, and what position in life they can play. And we wanted to correct most of the negative expectations or connotations given to them. For example, most men in any country or demographic really cannot talk about how they feel. If they're feeling sad, they can't go to their friends and say, look, I'm feeling sad, because they'll laugh at him like, you're a guy with a beard, look at you, you're a big guy, you're a strong guy, why don't you man up? Actually, one of the other initiatives was with my other brother called VS Cufflinks. It's called Man Up Initiative. He's currently running that. That's another one that stemmed from that sort of environment. So basically it's to help the boy child, giving them advice on how to look after themselves, how to start businesses, how to be emotionally responsible for certain situations, what to expect from people and what not to expect from people. Fixing those kind of...
Yeah, I'm curious, what got you interested so much? Is it a personal epiphany you experienced or a series of experiences to be curious or to want to help the boy child?
It happened by chance. It happened by chance that I ended up working in that sort of situation because they needed to have a venue to shoot something for the boy child and for men, and they happened to use my man cave because they liked the setting there. So there was somebody who was supposed to show up for an interview. He didn't show up, and I was there. They were like, please just talk for 10 minutes, you know. I talked for 10 minutes and everybody just started nodding their heads like, you know what, we want you to keep doing this because your insight is very unique. So we want that sort of thing.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I want that insight. What can you share us? What are the unique concerns about the boy child?
My personal concerns for the boy child. I was going through a divorce at the time. I was very depressed. I even had like suicidal thoughts and that kind of thing. So those are not things that you tell people. You know what I mean? Those are things you are forced to keep to yourselves, or even go to therapy or that kind of thing. But even therapy is frowned upon for the boy child. Like, what do you need therapy for? Just man up, suck it up. You know what I mean? And I'm here to say stuff like, you don't need to suck it up, because that stuff is poisonous. If you suck it up, eventually one day you're going to implode. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? So find a safe group of people you can talk to. You know what I mean? Let's create an environment where the boy child can speak up about things concerning them. You know what I mean? Yeah.
How did you yourself break through in the midst of all that?
Through talking to my friends like Andile.
Yeah.
Talking to my friends, going for therapy, basically breaking free from the mold that you should keep everything.
Stereotype.
Yes, the stereotype. Thank you. Just breaking the stereotype, and that can change or even save somebody's life. Yeah.
We do get stories of so and so has just blown himself up. So did this to his girlfriend or wife, and that's it.
Yeah.
And normally, when it gets to that point, there would have been a series of interventions that are necessary. So what are those interventions?
Unfortunately, most boy children, let's call them, sorry, they're grown men, but let's just call them the boy child.
Inside there, we always
yes.
boy inside.
Some of them don't know these avenues of relief because they are not presented to them. Like I say, the social pressures force you to withhold things. They force you to be suspicious of your friends, or your colleagues, or whoever you might choose to become your outlet. So you kind of hold things in, and that, like I said, that's a very poisonous thing to do. No man is an island. Nobody is strong enough to shoulder everything. Yeah.
So describe these shows that you do with Andile. Can you take us through one of them?
There was one, unfortunately, it never got aired. It was called Guided, as in GUI, guided. Yeah, as in GUY,
yes.
Guided. And it had different segments. There were segments about how to make money. There were segments about how to be emotionally intelligent. There were segments about challenges that men face and expectations, unrealistic expectations that are forced upon them, and how to break free from that.
And which one did you tackle, and how did you do so?
I tackled the divorce one, because that's what I was dealing with at that time. Yeah. So every emotion that comes with that, and every negative feeling, and every should I call it not stereotype,
negative feelings.
Yeah.
Enough, yeah.
Yeah.
So what advice would you now give as a quote-unquote experiential expert to someone going through a divorce? Suppose out of the blue,
yes,
they just get a summons or a letter of intention to divorce. What is the way to go about it?
Look, the law is fair. That's one thing I've learned. That's the one beautiful thing I've learned about the law in Botswana. It's very fair. I've heard of nightmare situations where people are forced to pay exorbitant amounts of money, and they're basically crippled. But if you appeal to the right organizations, they will assist you, and you will get fair help. Yeah.
You mean organizations as in for purpose of what? Counseling or what?
For purposes of counseling, legal assistance. There's some people who do pro bono. I was assisted by a company that I was doing pro bono at the time. Yeah.
So the problem is taken care of there. Would you say that the problems for the boy child are similar to those of the girl child?
That's a very difficult question to answer. I'm trying to be politically correct. In most instances, the challenges for the boy child versus the girl child are not equal to a point. I appreciate that there are some situations where the girl child has had very, very crazy, experiences. But so does the boy child. They also have some very crazy experiences. You know what I mean? So I believe in equality. I don't believe in double standards for any kind of situation.
Sometimes I wonder how we ended up as a society with a situation where both the boy child and the girl child feel hard done by society, and they both have grievances to varying degrees. Sometimes I just wonder on my own, how did we end up like this? Do you have a view?
I think it varies from society to society. There are some societies that are patriarchal and societies that are matriarchal. So when you're in a patriarchal society,
which is the African society,
yes, the girl child unfortunately is left wanting. Because they support the male over the female over certain things, and vice versa in a country where it's matriarchal.
Yeah, I was just hearing the news as I was coming to this show that in Afghanistan, the Taliban has issued an edict,
right,
that girls will
stop going to school and so forth.
Stop going to university, stop going to school.
I am very against that.
And the society, so there are societies which are really extreme.
Yeah, that's a very unfair extreme. I don't think anybody should have a suffocating sort of blanket thrown right on them. You know what I mean? I don't believe in stuff like that. So everybody should have equal opportunities. I know it sounds like a stretch, but those are my views.
Yeah. Before we close on this particular mini discussion,
yes,
when are the next shows, and what's going to happen with you and Andili in terms of this effort?
We haven't had that discussion. I think we had sort of put it on a back burner, but we'll pick it up again.
I think you should.
Yes.
Should promise the viewers that you'll do something.
Yes.
And can I push you to say an announcement will be made within the next month or two?
Yeah, that's easily doable.
Okay.
We can do that.
So we'll be waiting for that.
Yes, we might include you in that situation too.
I'm here.
Yes, indeed.
Listen, this is principally an entrepreneurship show.
Yes.
So let's talk sales. Let's go back to the bearded craftsman.
Yes.
Where is the Nyogo? Where is the Zaga? Let's talk performance and sales.
Okay. Performance and sales. If you are, like I said earlier in passing, if you're clever enough to spot a niche, then you're set, and you have to be the best at that niche. You know what I mean? That's where the money is. Something that is cheap to produce and in bulk. Novelty items, the once-offs, those are things that you can charge very high prices for. But unfortunately, for things like that, you'll probably get something like 10, 11, 12 in a month. These are items that will cost you over 50,000 pula or whatever. These are things that you can get only maybe if you're really good at what you do. You are stifled because there's big companies already that are already doing stuff like that. So they have to trust you.
Nobody can touch IKEA. Right?
Yes. There are big companies, corporations that are doing that. Even here in Botswana, there are big companies that are very good at that, and they have the manpower to do that.
So how do you position yourself to fight with the giants, so to speak?
The truth is, the easiest path is not to fight with them. Yeah, just pick up where you feel like they lack, and maximize on that. Yeah.
Any way of collaborating with them and perhaps getting subcontracts from them?
Unfortunately, most of them that you approach, it's either they want to swallow you into their corporation as an employee, or they want to negate you completely. Yes.
To wipe you out as a competitor.
Yes.
So, what do you then do?
What you then do is, gosh, that's a very good question. What you then do is find an environment where both of you can work together, and the best sort of solution or situation that you can have in a situation like that is take their fall off. And work with that.
How does the impact of COVID, positive or negative, on you and on your sales?
For me, that's how, look, COVID crippled a lot of businesses. And the saving grace is that even during COVID, there's going to be somebody who's going to have a birthday. There's going to be somebody, unfortunately, who's going to have a funeral. So you can just switch up your product. Instead of making beds and stuff, you can start making coffins. Instead of, that's dark humor, but instead of making
dark reality.
Yeah, dark reality. Instead of making stuff like furniture, you can make like gifting boxes. They fetch a pretty penny. Yeah.
So, in fact, one can really make a profitable business out of this.
Yes.
And would you say that is the Zaka? I mean, I'm really pushing you to the Zaka question because the youngsters always want me to know whether...
Unfortunately, I'm still trying to push the Zaka. I'm still trying to compete with the big boys. I'll get there one day. Yes.
Okay. So, which leads us to... before we talk about prospects for expansion, are there any significant setbacks or significant challenges that you can share?
Significant setbacks, the biggest one is financing. It's you have to be very good and have to have a track record for anybody to invest in you. So...
And thankfully you are very good.
Thankfully I'm very good, and thankfully I have a very accommodating family. So that's where I get most of my financing from.
So what was the setback?
The setback is acquiring specific specialty equipment. You can buy what you call it? Not replacement. What's the word I'm looking for? You can buy something similar, but it won't produce the same.
Can buy a Hong Kong.
Yes, you can. You can. I've done that.
Yes.
You can buy a Hong Kong, but the problem with Hong Kongs is they're not. They die off very quickly, and you have to keep spending to keep buying to replace that item. And unfortunately, when you want good machinery, you have to look outside the country.
Okay. I've had people getting machinery from far away as China and India.
Yes.
And then finding that it doesn't have
spare parts,
and it's not conducive for the conditions here, and it becomes more or less a white elephant. So how do you guard against that?
My advice is to seek stuff from Europe, particularly Germany or England. Yes, you can't go wrong.
But then the exchange rate is horrendous.
It's horrendous, but most people who choose that path know already that they should expect that. This is what's going to happen. I have to sort of close my eyes, bring out the card, pay it, and just, wait to receive your item. But once you have it, it will serve you a very, very long time.
What kind of equipment, for instance, are you referring to here?
I'm talking about panel saws. Panel saws are these things that you stick on the wall, and they cut big boards. Yeah, you can't cut really. You can, but it's very challenging to cut big boards on table saws and that sort of thing.
I've heard someone say that in India and China you can get good stuff, but you just have to have backup in terms of an agent on the ground,
right,
who can check things for you, or you yourself had to possibly go there,
yes,
and see for yourself what is available.
I think it's cheaper to just do your research and order online from Germany or from China, from England, because look, you're going to have to take chances to go to India, and you might meet shady people and that sort of thing. I haven't had that experience, but I've heard of, you know, and sometimes the gamble is not worth the effort. Yeah.
Wow, an interesting take on that. All right, let's talk about. You mentioned various Ferris projects.
Yes. Yes.
What is Ferris Projects?
Ferris Projects is a company that I started with my best friend in 2015. We were manufacturing toilet paper and sanitary pads, and you know, selling them to different institutions. And unfortunately, shortly after I started that company, I had a terrible car accident, and I broke my back and all that kind of thing. So I had to recover first. And whilst I was recovering, because I was the only partner in Botswana, there was nobody to take the shortfall. So I had to sell that company.
I'm sorry. You were out of action for how long?
For almost a good year.
Okay.
Yeah.
But it's a good business. Are you thinking of reopening it?
I'm looking into other ventures. It was good business, but it had its own challenges as well. Okay. There were too many competitors and too many big players.
But I guess if you had stayed the course, you would be far.
Yes, I guess you're right.
Is it fair to say that?
It's fair to say that.
Okay. All right. So I want you to discuss your business philosophy. I get the sense from talking to you that you venture into various things out there.
Yes.
What would be your business philosophy, and what would you share with the youngsters out there?
The most important thing to me is do something that you enjoy doing. I know it sounds cliche, but it's exactly as it is. It's exactly as it sounds like. If you do something that you enjoy, you won't see it as work for starters, and it will keep you out of trouble. You know, you if you do something that you enjoy, it pays off. Yeah.
And there's a tendency, obviously, to say you may like what you like, you may be passionate about something, but what if the market is not interested? So people will say, and I want to hear your view on this, that you can't just run with your passion when nobody's interested in it.
Funny thing is, I'm the living example of that. You can. You know, like I said, I started a company called Signature Cupcakes at the time. It took a while to gain traction because people don't understand, why are you going to be paying 10,000 pula for a cake? It doesn't make sense, you know. But the more you consistently engage the public socially and showing them exactly what you can do. I could make a cake back then that looks exactly like you.
Really?
Yeah. Mold it and using molding chocolate and all that stuff. So nowadays, there's a lot of companies doing stuff like that. You know,
and filming themselves online.
Yes.
So it's a case of your philosophy is build it and they'll come.
Yes, build it and they'll come, and they sure will come. Yeah.
And the challenge then is to have enough of a passion to persist and to persevere through the drought period.
From my experience, realistically, the first 3 years or so, you're going to struggle because you're trying to establish yourself, and people need there's word of mouth and all this stuff. You're trying to generate a situation where people know that there's this guy who does this and is good at it.
Okay.
So they might not want that thing this year or next year, but best believe the moment they are moving into a new house and they want furniture and they see stuff on Pinterest and on social media and they can't buy it in the local shops, they're going to come to you because they know you can deliver.
Yeah. Help me convince the skeptics out there that it's really ultimately better to use your hands to get engaged physically in your craft, in your work, than to simply, be in some office.
My honest answer to that is my grandparents and my parents instilled it into me, and I believe that till this day. There's nothing that beats a sharp mind. Educate yourself, arm yourself, because without that, whether you're good with your hands or not, You might be good with your hands, but you won't know what to do with that talent if nobody trains you on what to do with it. Yes. So education is very important for that. You'll be able to communicate firstly, before anything, with people in the offices. You'll be able to talk to them at their stage. You know what I mean?
Yes.
When you're just John Doe off the streets with just your hands, and how are you going to convince somebody who's used to doing gigantic deals in the office? You know what I mean? They're not going to take you seriously.
And your answer reminds me of a slogan. When I was in America, there's an organization called United Negro College.
Right.
They had a slogan that a mind is a terrible thing to waste.
Right.
And I've come to learn that it's one thing to have the mind, but you have to engage it in activity that has a physical component. And I believe neuroscientists are discovering that physical activity combined with the mind activity sharpens, improves your sharpness, and it improves your ability to get the results you need. I don't know what your experience is in that regard.
I agree with it to a certain extent. Like I said, I'm an equal opportunities person. I've got people who work for me who are physically disabled and stuff like that, and they do jobs way better than any other place I've ever experienced. And to tie it in with the mental sharpness, I think engaging yourself physically in any activity keeps you fit. I'm sure it releases some kind of endorphins or something. I don't know the scientific thing, but a lazy person who's sitting at home and a person who's physically doing something, even if it's not physical work, maybe exercise and stuff, much sharper mentally, and they have more longevity.
Okay, that makes sense. But what would you say is the role of AI and machine learning, especially in your industry, in carpentry? Has AI and machine learning started rearing its head in this area?
I have been doing. I have been using AI and I don't know if you call it AI, but I use CNC laser cutters and all those sort of things. Things that take minutes. It takes minutes to do stuff that would have taken me weeks.
What are those CNC?
Engrave, carving your face on a piece of wood.
How does that work?
You just
CNC cutters,
You draw you insert a file. You create a CAD file on the computer, and enter your dimensions and that kind of thing, and put in the size of the piece of wood and work on the area that you wanted to carve something, and it does it for you whilst you do something else.
Wow.
Yeah.
Because this reminds me of these photocopies that can create things. What are they called?
3D printers.
3D printers.
Yes, that's another example.
What's your familiarity with that?
Currently, my familiarity with the 3D printers are the ones that I used to use to make little models of buildings and that sort of thing, to show a client, like, look, your house is going to look like this. This is how the door opens in the house. That sort of thing. Okay. You know what I mean? So they're very good at giving a visual aid, but they also have negative
components.
There's some extremists out there. Unfortunately, you can actually print a firing pistol with a 3D printer. Terrorists are using that right now.
From scratch.
You know the war in Ukraine? Those guys are 3D printing drones that are dropping hand grenades on their enemies, that sort of thing. So it depends on the mind or the person who's behind that AI or who's behind that machinery.
Yeah. So then in your organization, in terms of your plans,
yes,
how do you foresee this area expanding, and how do you intend to mobilize it?
I still have to research some more on the use of 3D printers, but I don't use them really in my line of work. I use more the CNC carving tools,
Yeah, I'm trying to visualize it, and I really want to ask you for the benefit of my viewers.
Right.
Are you saying that there's a machine there that can do human work while you're doing other stuff?
Yes.
and simplify it for us.
Okay. Here's an example. You want a bed with a headboard that has ornamental designs all over it. Instead of taking a hammer and a chisel and carving that out, you can just design that into a CAD file on a machine, on your computer, and it instructs the blade on the CNC cutter or whatever to carve out that design. When I say you leave that and go and do something else, you can go and erect the rest of the bed physically while it's carving out that design. It takes hours while it's carving out that design on the piece of wood that you're then going to put as the back as the headboard.
How do you then input and instruct it exactly what to do? Are you put dimensions or drawings? How does it know exactly where to?
You use vectors. There's shapes that you input onto the machine, and then it selects whether inverse or converse or what. I forget the terminology. It cuts out certain areas of space on the piece of wood. Some will be left raised, and then some it will dig deeper, and the end result is that there'll be a carving of some sort, like a company logo.
Yeah. Does this mean that it's getting to a point where you can carve the Michelangelo's David, a classic sculpture like that?
There's people who have done that, made replicas of that on wood or on metal or whatever.
Using machinery.
Yes, all they need is the image, and then they can just calibrate the depth of the blade on how it cuts on the thing, and it will do that for you. Yeah.
Incredible.
Yes.
Incredible.
Yeah.
Now,
it's a wonder to watch. It's a very beautiful thing.
Yeah. Now, are your social media followers aware of this? Do you share a little bit of this with them?
Yes. Like I said, I videotape with the thing, laser engraving. They see it in real time happening, and yeah.
Okay. Now, I've heard Elon Musk warn us about the dangers of AI.
Yes.
But let's look at the positive side to say, are we getting to a point where there will be a whole factory where you have all these things running, like 20 of them, and you're the only guy who just inputs and does other things?
Speaking of Elon Musk, he has companies that does that, Tesla and all that. He's got companies that build these automotive car components and all that sort of thing. The fenders, and the only human interaction is when these guys push it to a certain thing, and then they screw together pre-made jigsaw puzzles of cars, that sort of thing. Yeah.
And in Botswana, to what extent have we embraced this technology?
That's an answer that I don't know how to honestly answer, because I haven't seen personally that sort of thing. Yes, I haven't seen personally.
You're just an individual with your own niche.
Yes.
You have not really had a chance to see how society responds to any of this.
Yes, I would love to see that.
Okay. All right. Let's talk a little bit about the crystal ball issue. In terms of what you see yourself as a brand some 15 years down the line.
Okay.
And also let's talk specifically about the bearded craftsmen.
Yes.
And even the Ferris projects.
Yes.
10, 15 years down the line.
Ferris Projects has already evolved. It has already evolved from the first evolvement was introduced a company called Ferris Cabs maybe some 3 years ago, where our cabs had an app. Unfortunately, it didn't get received very well. But nowadays, it was going to compete with the likes of. What are these guys in South Africa?
Uber.
But it was a Ferris sort of situation. Yes. I tried to introduce that. It worked for a little while, but then people weren't really receptive to that. There were issues
like you said, you built it and they'll come.
Yes.
They were still yet to come.
Yes. And back then, internet connections and so forth, people weren't really prioritizing buying data back then. Yeah.
As they do now.
Yes.
So, still, your future prospects. I'm waiting for the answer.
My future prospects, like I said, Me and my partner, we are working on a company called Chengeta Diaspora. Basically, if you've ever heard of Mukuru or MoneyGram, or it's that sort of thing. Yes.
And the plan is to go continental with that.
It's currently in a few countries. It's in Joburg, it's in Zimbabwe, Namibia, I believe. I'm not, yeah.
What's the differentiator from Mukuru? Or is that
it's specifically the same product, just cheaper. Yeah.
And you found something that you can do, probably a secret sauce, to make it cheaper.
I don't want to divulge that.
Yeah, but I mean, I'm saying it's a secret sauce.
Yes, pretty much.
Yeah. Okay. One of those stories of I could tell you, but I'll have to take you out.
Yes.
All right. So the brand will be where in 20 years? I mean, if we think of Thulani Zimunhu and if we think of the bearded craftsman,
yes,
what are we going to have? I'm just trying to visualize it.
You mentioned IKEA. I want to get into flat pack furniture in the next few years, where I just make flat pack designs and pieces. It's basically, you receive this table in a jigsaw puzzle in a box, and then you just assemble it yourself.
Looking at some kind of drawing or design?
No, you'll have a set of instructions. They're very easy to, the legs detachable, maybe screw them on or that kind of thing. Yeah, I think that's the way.
On a massive scale?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
You'll have to get into deals with the retailers to distribute, unless you do your own distribution.
If that too, eventually in the next, yeah.
So anything else for the brand?
For now, that's the main focus. Right now, I'm just concentrating on its growth. Like I said, I'm currently recruiting, and we'll see where I can take it from there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Speak generally about Botswana as your new home.
Yes.
I've been relocated here, for 12 years?
Maybe more.
Okay. About 15?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, what is your overall impression, and what do you think about the business environment?
Most people tend to say that it's not very welcoming to outside, people, but that hasn't been my experience. I think I've had the same opportunities that others have had. Because you blend in. Yeah. Yes, indeed. I've had the same opportunities that others have had. There's not one time I've been turned away from anything the way I've heard others might have, or they claim to have. I don't know. But I think Botswana is a beautiful country. The people are very welcoming. They're very accepting of new concepts, So it may be slow at the beginning, but it's worth it if you stay true to your horses. Yeah.
So do you have a question for me at this point?
Let's talk guided. Would you be interested in sharing your platform with trying to assist the boy child and that sort of thing? I think, like you said, within a month would like to work on something and then try and introduce some self-help sort of situation.
I'm very passionate about the girl child.
Yes.
I'm equally passionate about the boy child.
Yes.
So any opportunity that within reason affords itself for me to help these folks.
Yes.
I do with my mentorship. I do with my entrepreneurship training through Angel Network.
Okay.
And I certainly do in terms of my hiring, where I am trying to be diverse. So if there's an opportunity, if you guys come up with something, it'd be nice if we can even make it financially worthwhile.
Okay.
In terms of at least be self-sustaining and cover its own cost. I'll be happy to be part of that event.
I'm very happy to hear that.
And Angela knows.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. I think that camera is yours as we wrap up.
Yes.
Look at it and look at that viewer who's been watching you.
Yes.
And leave them with something they can hold on to in terms of motivation.
Basically, hi guys. I'd like to say, don't be scared to be passionate about anything. The biggest fear that most people have is like, how will I start my company? look, like I said, you can start your own company with 200 pula in your pocket. You know what I mean? With just a couple of orders. You know, the trick is to, when you're starting, just forward all the costs to your client. You know what I mean? Your materials and all that stuff. Ask for a 60% deposit. You know, and use that deposit to buy the materials you have. Don't go buy liquor. Don't go partying with that money. Just go and buy everything you need for that order, and then knock that order out, and then get the balance, and that's your profit. Simple.
So there's always a way.
There's always a way. There's always a way. So don't be afraid. Yeah.
Thank you very much. Do you mind sharing your social media contacts and all the other contacts?
Yes, my Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, they're all Bearded Craftsman BW, all of them. And the TikTok is Silverback. That's s.ilverback. There we go.
And let them know why they should always subscribe and watch Mogobe Nuggets of Wisdom.
Look, when you watch Mogobe Nuggets of Wisdom, you get to see a different, different people from different walks of life giving their experiences and helpful information. You know, there's always an answer. And if you don't know everything, you know, you can always follow Mogobe Nuggets of Wisdom, and you see how other people have built their businesses, how other people are doing what they are doing, and the help that's available to them. And that can assist you.
Thank you for that plug.
You're very welcome.
And
thank you so much for inviting me on your platform.
I enjoyed it. Excellent.
Yeah.